Hello folks, I'm here working on my 4-TEC 2.0 and these are the parts I plan on installing on it today, which I showed you in the unboxing I got before. So this is the STRC graphite carbon fiber front shock tower, the rear shock tower, hey kitty, the metal motor mount from STRC, and I also got this Castle Creations blower system. I think the blower's not going to fit though because of the way the wires are. The way the wires fit onto the motor is kind of in the way. I'm going to start wrenching on this. There's no instructions, but I'll try and figure it out. Looks like maybe the rest of the hardware is just so you hang the shocks. Figure it out as we go. Right, kitty cat? Just quickly, here's how they look stock. So it's a plastic composite shock tower with 2 screws that hold the bottom in and 2 screws that hold the top shock in that just screw into the posts. And then very similar for the rear. Alright, I have the front shock tower off now, and some stuff I just wanted to show about it. It sits this way on the car. It does have this groove on the back, and that sits on the front bulkhead, like that. So this new one is just a flat piece of carbon fiber, and one side is slightly different from the other. The one side has cutouts for the holes, and that is so that it can sit over the little posts in the diff cover like that. If you don't put it on the other way, or it'll stick out weird, nothing will hold it on there. So you want to use it with the cut hole side in. Now, carbon fiber, I was wondering, is it graphite, is it carbon fiber, what is it? I'm not entirely sure. But really, if this is real carbon fiber, before I put it on, I should be coating this in CA glue. Now, my glue is all messed up right now, so I don't have CA glue that actually works. It's all glued shut, so I'm just gonna have to put it on stock, and hopefully I don't splinter it. I don't think I'm going to, because they're not exposed. It's not like an off-road car where it's getting beat on in crashes. It's under the body, nothing ever touches it, so hopefully it's fine. We're gonna try and run it just perfectly stock for now, and when they start to splinter, then I'll glue them. Maybe I should do a weight test on them. Is there any point? Are you doing a weight savings by putting on the carbon versus the stock part? Here's a scale. Let me turn the scale on. What is it set on? I think it's on grams or something. So 3 grams. The front stock shock tower is 3 grams. Now, carbon fiber piece. 3 grams. 3 grams. And by the time you add the extra hardware that you need versus the 2 screws that you need, it's actually making it heavier. It will be heavier. Yeah. Oh well. I think these carbon fiber pieces are kind of useless. But the metal motor mount should be worthwhile. It'll act as a heatsink, so I can recommend the metal heatsink for your motor mount, but don't bother with the carbon fiber shock towers. I don't see much point in it. Alright, now like I thought, you do need more hardware to install your shock on the carbon fiber shock tower. So you need this metal spacer and then a nut on the back. So that's how it works. The screw has to be longer because the shock tower isn't as offset as the original one. The original one kind of comes out to the front a little bit. This one's perfectly straight. So put your screw through, put your washer on, go through the inside hole, and you put your nut on the back. And the nut is a 5.5 millimeter nut. So you need a 2 millimeter Allen head to hold the front, and then a 5.5 millimeter nut driver on the back, and that's it. Now the front shock tower is done. Somewhat of a pointless upgrade in my opinion, but we did it anyway, and now let's see what the rear does. For the rear shock tower, you do have to remove the rear body posts first. It's these 2 screws that are in the upper top of the shock tower. The whole part will come off, and then you'll be able to access those screws underneath there that you can't really see, and then you'll be able to take your rear shock tower off. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll start on the install of the new one. And for the new one, it needs even more hardware because of the way that the rear body posts sit. So you have even more metal spacers, which means it's going to be even heavier than stock. These metal washers are not light, and neither is the carbon fiber piece. So definitely not for a weight savings if that's what you were hoping for. Alright, the rear shock tower is off and ready for the new one. I just wanted to point out these rear body posts. I thought there was just the 2 screws. There is one that goes down the center, down the middle. So you have to take out this screw that's sticking up here. And then it just lifts off. 2 screws to... okay, whoa. 2 screws to pop out the rear shock tower, which is keyed as rear. And then here's the new one. So how much heavier is the new one? Stock, 6 grams. This itself is 5, 4. Whoa, 11. See, the nuts and the washers. Killer for weight. I mean, a few grams here and there don't seem like it means that much, but the whole point of this was, oh, it's going to be stronger and lighter. Nah, it's going to be maybe stronger, and it's going to be 5 or 6 grams heavier. Alright, I thought I'd better just point out what's happening here. When you go to put the body mounts back on, you do get 2 different size of spacers. The big bore spacers are for the shocks, and the small bore spacers are for the rear body post mounts. The way that it sits on, like this, it has these countersunk holes, and you need to put these in here, which raises it up just that little bit, so then it makes a better seal. So you have to put those 2 spacers into your rear shock tower like that, then put your screws through, then put nuts on the other side. Shock towers are done, and I gotta say, don't bother getting this part, guys. There's no point to it. All it does is add weight. And I'm not even sure that it really adds any strength. Maybe a little bit, but carbon fiber is brittle and will splinter if it gets a hard enough accident, whereas the plastic stock parts will bend. So I'm going to say don't bother getting the STRC carbon fiber shock towers unless you really want to have some chrome washers and nuts weighing down your car, because you need 4 spacers and 4 nuts on the rear, and 2 spacers and 2 nuts on the front. And yeah, it really doesn't change the aesthetic all that much. And for something where I thought I was going to be getting something stronger and lighter, I'm fairly disappointed that it's quite a bit heavier. Onto the metal motor mount. Now I know the metal motor mount is going to be heavier, but it's going to act as a heat sink, so we'll throw that on, and while the motor's out, I'll see if I can fit a fan. Just doing the metal motor mount now. This is the plastic one. I just wanted to point out that the plastic one has the markings in it for the fixed positioning, A through K, and the new one does not. That's one of the complaints I had when I saw this from STRC, is that it doesn't have the markings. It also doesn't have countersunk holes to capture your screws. So I think the hot racing part is superior. Anyway, I'm going to put this on now. I have to match it up with the holes, and I'll have to remember in the future to keep this around so I know what my letters are. Anyway, throw that on now. Here's the metal motor mount installed. I really like this part. I got the gunmetal color, although when it's installed you will never ever see it. So you just put it down into your grooves, and that's it. And then you put your cover on and it'll be hidden, but it'll be acting as a motor heatsink, also quite a bit stronger. Before I button it up, I'm going to see about adding a fan. We're almost there. I did install a motor fan. This is a hot racing custom adjustable motor fan, and I did find enough clearance to be able to fit a fan on there. It's kind of just hovering over the motor. I don't know if it's going to do a whole lot, but a little bit of a peace of mind. And that motor, or the fan's starting to die. I had used it on my Slash before, but it still functions. Now I'm trying to figure out tires. So I've just taken the stock tires off. I have these Contact RC foams, which I wanted to use for speed runs, but once again I'm having track width issues. So you can't use the stock wheel hex because it interferes. It sits so close into the body, it's actually rubbing on the chassis and the links. Now if you use the Stampede Part 3654, that gives you another millimeter or two. With that installed, it doesn't hit anything, but you're losing quite a bit of track width. Like, look at how it's lined up to the chassis there versus how much offset this wheel is. Like, these must have a 5mm offset to these wheels, because even when I take these off and I tried, I got a set of drift tires. These are HPI, here's what they are. HPI Racing mounted Super Drift on a 3mm offset chrome wheel. But even with the Stampede spacer, you know, that's a little bit more appropriate. It's a much skinnier tire, but we're getting pretty close to, that's probably a 190mm track width with these. I have enough to make it work, at least from the rear. I haven't tried the fronts yet. I better go try the fronts. Still working on the rear. It interferes. Even with the Stampede hexes, it hits on the rim on the bottom here of the shock. So I need to space it out by a few more millimeters. And the only thing I have that I thought that I might be able to do is my old 4-TEC had these, where these are just fancy washers, but they're in the shape of a hex. Now you could use any washer, but I don't have any that are that thick, which will give me just that extra little bit of clearance, but it also gives me less bite drive action on the wheel. So you do potentially increase your risk of stripping out the rim, but it's really my only option at this point. Traxxas, what were you thinking when you built the offset of this car like this? Oh, it's so annoying. I think they made it like that so you have to buy their own rims, because it has super high, probably 5mm plus offset. Ugh, annoying. The rears are on, and I did use 2 of these little spacers on the rear to extend out the track width just enough for clearance, and they are on and they're working. Now that's with the 30mm rear foams. One issue, there's not enough thread left on the stud to reach the nylon lock of the nut, so it could come flying off at high speed. Not good. Don't buy the 30mm tires for the 4-TEC 2.0 if you're trying to run foams. The 26mm are much easier to deal with. The 26mm on the front work just fine. Take the caliper off, pop the tire on, and it's almost a perfect alignment of wheel spacing from front to rear. So 26mm on the front, I've got the 30mm on the rear, but because they are 30mm and they poke inside, it was interfering a lot. So buy the 26, buy a full set of 26s. Another issue with the offset on the 4-TEC 2.0, 26mm, very great. 30mm, problem. If you have the GT body, because the way the GT body is scallops down for the arrow, for the pass-through, your suspension interferes. So if you have a 30mm wheel that has a low offset, it hits the body. So I get very little suspension travel because it's going to hit the body. It's going to rip up the tire or rip up the body. I'm not going to be able to do a speed run with this. So we're canceling the speed run for today until I get another set of 26mm foams, and we're just going to go drifting. So I'll put I'll put some of the new hard drift tires on, and we'll go out and do that instead. We're going to run it like this. This is with the full set of the HPI Racing mounted Super Drift tire with the TE37 3mm offset rim. Holy, it works fine on the front. And using the stock front wheel hexes, it gives you a perfect, for racing anyway, even though you can't race with these tires, 190mm track width. On the rear I had to use the 3654 Stampede hexes, and even then, you're at 185. Man, I wish Traxxas hadn't designed such a weird rear track width on this vehicle, because it just makes getting it set up properly weird. So even like this, how I'm going to run it, it's 5mm wider in the front than it is in the rear. We're going to go out with these. These are hard rubber. Now, since it's a 190 front and a 185 rear, it is going to look a little bit weird with the body on it, where the wheels are going to sit inside, tucked. But it's not bad. And now the actual, at least the suspension works. With the foams, I had no rear suspension, so I couldn't run the foams. We're going to go out and have some fun drifting with this.